I've just downloaded memoQ version 9.6 and I'm about to install it, but I want to install it in parallel with other older versions that I already have installed. In fact, let's take a look at what versions I've got on my computer already. I've got versions of memoQ 8 and memoQ 9. Let's take a look at memoQ 8. I have version 8.3, 8.4, and version 8.7 on this computer. And for memoQ 9, here I can see that I have version 9.4 already. Now you may wonder why I have so many different versions. Some of the older versions of memoQ require that if you are doing project management or administrative work on a server that you have the same version. That's the case, for example, for version 8.3, and I'm an administrator on a version 8.3 server. So I have to keep a copy of memoQ 8.3 installed in order to be able to do my work on that server. Most of the other versions that are installed on my computer are for compatibility testing. Also, when new versions appear, sometimes they have bugs that haven't been caught in testing, and I may find that an import or an export that I'm accustomed to doing doesn't work in the new version. Very often, if I simply perform the same process on an older version, the previous version, or one a little bit further back, the process works without difficulties. Having these multiple versions installed in parallel doesn't cause problems with memoQ. In fact, they share the same resources, the same light resources like auto-translation rules and segmentation rules, QA profiles, and so forth, as well as the same heavy resources, the translation memories, the terminologies, the LiveDocs corpora, and so forth. So it is very rare that there will be any issues involved in using resources between different versions. Now notice in my Start menu that versions 8.3, 8.4, and 8.7 all appear in what looks like a memoQ 8 folder. In terms of the file system of Windows, however, these installations are organized a little bit differently. Let's take a look at how that has happened. The memoQ 8 versions are on my C drive in the program files for x86. Version 9 installations are in the program files folder. But let's open up the other folder and have a look inside. Here they are under the Kilgray subfolder. The newer versions of memoQ will be in a memoQ folder. And here I see I've got version 8-3 is the way that the folder is named, version 8.4, and something that says version 8. Let's open that up and have a little look and see which one that is exactly. Here's the executable file for memoQ. We'll right-click and look at the properties. And if we look at the details, we'll see that this is in fact my memoQ 8.7 installation. And again, this is a little bit different than the organization that we saw here under the Start menu. So these shortcuts here under the Start menu do not, in fact, reflect the actual folder structure in which the programs are stored. So now let's go ahead and install my memoQ version 9.6. Close this window. We'll double-click to launch. I'm going to install it in English. Other options for installation are German, Spanish, French, Japanese, and Hungarian. Okay, I'm going to accept the agreement. And I want it to write the files into this path. I'll name the new folder. And this will ensure that the main program files do not overwrite files from older versions of memoQ. And I'm done. The installation is that fast. Now I'll go back to the Start menu and launch memoQ 9.6. It'll be here under the recently added files. It says that the activation module needs my attention because there are currently no active licenses on my computer. What's with that? All the other versions of memoQ work just fine. Don't worry. Every version of memoQ that I have installed shares the same license, but I have to communicate with the central activation server for memoQ in order to activate my license for the newer version. So I'll click OK. And in my case, I wish to update my licenses from memoQ Limited's central activation server. My service agreement is up to date, so this should work. Whoops, no it doesn't. I get a message that I currently do not have any valid licenses for memoQ. Actually, it means I don't have any valid licenses for memoQ version 9.6. So I'm going to contact support@memoq.com and see what's going on, see if I need to have my service agreement brought up to date or whatever the problem is. Let me see what happens if I try to open a project here with this unlicensed copy of memoQ. Okay, I get a message that there is currently no license to use the function that I chose, which in this case was to open up a project that's here in my list, a project created in an older version of memoQ. So I'm out of luck there. So now I'll contact memoQ support and sort out my licensing issues. I'm going to try this again, changing the serial number. I'm going to make a quick screenshot of my current number just in case something goes wrong. And then I'm going to click Next, put in the new serial number, and this time I'm going to change the final number to 2. Put in my other information. And click Next. Yes. And once again, I will try to use the central activation server. Aha! So that was the problem. I have 2 licenses that I can use for each edition, but apparently I'm already using the number 1 license on a different computer. So I had to change the final number of my license to 2 so that I could use the second license for version 9.6. And now I'll be able to open my project, for example.